A single story holds the keys to wealth, power, and wisdom. This is the promise of an ancient Hindu parable known as the King and the Corpse. Within this tale, a legendary king faces a ghost in a haunted forest, and with each step, he must solve a riddle that reveals a fundamental truth about life. By the end of this journey, you will have a new lens to view your own choices and challenges. We will explore why a corpse tells stories, how a king's silence could shatter his skull, and what these nested mysteries teach us about duty, courage, and illusion. What do you believe is the most valuable lesson a story can teach? The legendary king in this tale is Vikramaditya, a name that echoes through Indian history as the very model of a just and fearless ruler. His kingdom thrives under his unwavering sense of duty, but one evening, a mysterious tantric sage arrives at his court with a proposition that seems more like a trap. The sage seeks to perform a powerful ritual, but he requires a specific macabre component. He needs King Vikram to go alone at midnight to the heart of a desolate cremation ground. There, hanging from the gnarled branch of a sacred tree, swings the corpse of a sinner. The king's task is to cut down this corpse and carry it back to the sage without uttering a single word. This is no ordinary body. It is inhabited by a Vetala, a powerful, cunning spirit, and the Vetala has its own rules for this journey. The moment the king slings the corpse over his shoulder and begins the long walk back, the spirit will speak. It will tell a fascinating, morally complex story, and at the end, it will pose a riddle rooted in that story's events. The king, renowned for his wisdom, will certainly know the answer. But here is the sinister catch. If King Vikram remains silent, if he hears the riddle and knows the solution but says nothing, the Vetala's power will shatter the king's skull into 1,000 pieces. Yet, if the king speaks, if he gives the correct answer to prove his wisdom, the spell is broken. The corpse, released from the king's silence, will simply fly back to its tree, forcing the king to begin the entire terrifying trek all over again. This is the relentless, repetitive framework of the parable. Each story is a step on this impossible path, each correct answer a reset button of frustration, building a profound suspense not about whether the king is clever, but about how long he can endure this cycle of intellectual victory and physical defeat. What kind of test measures not just knowledge but sheer, stubborn perseverance? The Vetala's first story begins not with a ghost but with a princess. She is the beloved daughter of a great king, and she possesses a unique, troubling gift. Whenever she speaks, jewels and fragrant flowers fall from her lips. This divine blessing, however, makes her a target. A powerful demon king desires to kidnap her, to keep her as a living treasure that would literally spill riches with every word. To protect her, her father builds a towering 7-story pavilion in the middle of a vast lake, accessible only by a single, heavily guarded boat. Yet the demon's dark magic finds a way. He sends a terrifying, disembodied arm that crashes through the pavilion roof, seizes the princess, and whisks her away into the sky. 3 men witness this horror from the shore. Each loves the princess deeply. The first is a warrior, a master of weapons and strategy. The second is a skilled administrator, a man of letters and law. The third is a fabulously wealthy merchant. Without a moment's hesitation, they give chase. The warrior leaps onto his horse, tracking the demon's path across the countryside. The administrator, knowing the demon's lair is likely in a mountain cave, devises a complex plan to scale the cliffs. The merchant, using his vast resources, hires a legion of laborers to tunnel directly into the mountain from the other side. Miraculously, all 3 arrive at the demon's chamber at the same moment. The warrior engages the monster in a fierce duel, his sword flashing. The administrator quickly deciphers the magical locks on the princess's chains. And the merchant, seeing the princess weakened, offers her a revitalizing elixir from his stores. Together, they save her and return her safely to her father. The overjoyed king declares that the princess will marry whichever man she deems most worthy. She is torn. Each suitor performed a heroic, essential act. The warrior provided the courage to fight, the administrator the wisdom to free her, and the merchant the compassion to restore her. She cannot choose. So the king poses the question to his court, and the debate rages. Who is truly the most deserving? The Vetala finishes the tale and turns its silent, expectant gaze upon King Vikram, who still carries the corpse on his back. The spirit's voice echoes in the dark forest. Great king, you who are famed for justice, answer this. Who among the three, the warrior, the administrator, or the merchant, has the greatest claim to the princess's hand? Think carefully, for your skull depends upon it. King Vikram does not hesitate. He knows the answer lies not in the outcome, but in the nature of the action itself. The warrior, he declares, is most deserving. Why? Because his was the only act performed without any possibility of personal gain. He fought the demon to save a life, a pure duty of protection. The administrator used his specialized knowledge, and the merchant used his material wealth, both tools they already possessed. But the warrior risked his very life, offering the one thing that cannot be bought or learned: raw courage in the face of terror with no guarantee of reward. It is a verdict that honors selfless duty over utility or resource. The moment the words leave the king's lips, the Vetala lets out a knowing laugh. Correct, O king. And with a sudden, violent wrench, the corpse tears itself from Vikram's shoulders and flies through the trees, back to its branch in the haunted grove. The first answer is given, the first lesson taught, and the first long walk back begins anew. Vikramaditya's answer reveals a cornerstone of the entire parable's philosophy. The warrior's action was pure dharma, a Sanskrit word that means far more than simple duty. It is one's righteous path, the essential order of things, the action performed because it is inherently correct, with no attachment to the outcome. The administrator and the merchant, while heroic, were guided by aspects of karma, which encompasses desire, pleasure, and personal motive. The administrator used his intellect, a tool he desired to validate. The merchant used his wealth, an asset he desired to leverage. Their actions were good, but they were filtered through a lens of what they could achieve with what they already had. The warrior offered only what he was, his very being in that moment of danger. This ancient distinction is startlingly modern. How often do we perform a good deed while secretly hoping for a thank you, a promotion, or social admiration? That is action tinged with karma. Dharma asks a harder, purer question. Would you still do the right thing if no one was watching, if no reward was coming, if it actually cost you something dear? It is the difference between volunteering for a photo opportunity and anonymously helping a stranger in need. The story suggests that the most meaningful and honorable actions spring from this internal compass of what is right, not from an external calculator of what is beneficial. When we act from dharma, our choices become aligned with a deeper integrity. We are not performing for an audience, we are fulfilling a fundamental role in the larger tapestry of life. This is why the king, the ultimate judge, sided with the warrior. His verdict was a declaration that in the economy of the soul, selfless duty holds a value that cleverness and resources simply cannot match. The king's long walk back through the whispering forest is a silent testament to his resolve. He retrieves the corpse once more, slings it over his shoulder, and begins the trek again. True to its word, the Vetala begins a new tale, this one set not in a royal court but in a humble village. Here, a young couple lives in simple contentment. The husband, while a good man, is known more for his physical strength than for cleverness. One day, a notorious thief chief and his band spot the husband and decide to kidnap him, believing his brawn would make him a valuable addition to their criminal gang. They overpower him and drag him to their hidden mountain fortress. When the wife returns home to find her husband gone and signs of a struggle, her heart freezes. But her fear does not paralyze her. She does not weep helplessly or wait for others to act. Instead, she disguises herself in simple traveler's clothes, gathers a few supplies, and sets out alone to track the kidnappers. Following faint clues and asking discreet questions, she finds the thieves' lair. Hiding in the rocks, she observes the fortress and its routines. She sees her husband bound and guarded. She also sees the thief chief, a man of fearsome reputation who rules through intimidation and violence. A direct assault is impossible, so she devises a plan. Waiting until deep night when the sentries are drowsy, she sneaks to the outskirts of the camp. She then begins to imitate the chilling cry of a specific owl, a local omen believed to foretell disaster for thieves. The unnerving call echoes through the canyon again and again. The superstitious bandits grow agitated, arguing among themselves. Seizing the chaos, she creeps to where her husband is tied, cuts his bonds, and whispers for him to follow. But as they turn to flee, the thief chief himself blocks their path, a drawn sword in his hand. In that moment, the wife does not cower. She stands before her husband, looks the chief in the eye, and speaks with shocking authority. She reveals she knows his true name and the village of his birth, details she had pieced together from her earlier inquiries. She tells him his aged mother still lives there, praying for her lost son, and she describes the exact layout of his childhood home. This personal, intimate knowledge, delivered not as a threat but as a startling revelation of his forgotten humanity, stuns the thief chief. His fierce demeanor cracks. In that moment of hesitation, the couple escapes into the darkness. The Vetala finishes the story and poses its riddle to the trudging king. "Tell me, O judge of men," it asks. In this tale, three people faced danger. The husband fought his captors when first taken. The thief chief commands his band through ruthless bravery. And the wife orchestrated the escape with cunning and nerve. Who among them showed the greatest courage? King Vikram considers the question as he walks. The husband's resistance was instinctual, a reaction. The thief chief's bravery is rooted in aggression and power, serving his own gain. But the wife's courage was of a different quality entirely. She chose her path. Her courage was intelligent, a cool flame that burned through her fear. It was compassionate, driven by love for another, not a desire for dominance. And it was complete, requiring not just nerve but cleverness, patience, and profound psychological insight. The king answers the wife's courage was greatest. It was courage of the mind and spirit, not merely of the body. She walked into danger with open eyes, transformed her weakness into a weapon, and disarmed a villain not with force but with truth. Once more, the Vetala acknowledges the king's wisdom with a laugh, and once more the corpse flies from his back, returning to its tree. The lesson echoes in the empty night. True courage is not the absence of fear, but the will to act wisely in spite of it. That wife in the darkness, armed only with her wits, redefines what it means to be brave. The parable here challenges a myth as old as time, the idea that courage is synonymous with physical strength or loud defiance. In Sanskrit, the word is shaurya, and its meaning is far richer. It encompasses valor, yes, but also the fortitude of spirit, the loyalty that fuels action, and the strategic intelligence to navigate impossible situations. The wife's shaurya was a quiet, potent force. She did not charge the fortress gates, she studied them. Her courage was in her patience, in her ability to listen to the forest and use its own sounds as a tool. It was in her profound loyalty, a love so fierce it turned a frightened woman into a master strategist. And ultimately, her most courageous act was not the escape, but the moment she stood before the armed thief chief and spoke to the man beneath the monster, using truth as her final, unexpected weapon. This is courage that outsmarts obstacles rather than merely overpowering them. Think of a modern parallel, like a junior employee who must speak truth to power in a corporate meeting, pointing out an ethical flaw in a popular project. There is no physical battle, but the risk is real, the fear of reprisal palpable. The courage lies in the careful preparation, the calm delivery, and the loyalty to a principle larger than one's own comfort. Or consider the quiet, daily bravery of someone facing a deep personal fear, not by a sudden, dramatic confrontation, but through the wise, gradual steps of therapy or patient self-understanding. That, too, is Shaurya. The parable insists that the most profound courage often wears the cloak of wisdom. It is the strength to use your mind when your body trembles, to act from love when surrounded by threat, and to believe that a well-placed word can sometimes do what a sword cannot. This lesson prepares us for the Vetala's next move, for the stories are about to twist inward, questioning the very nature of reality itself. The forest path grows darker as the king retrieves the corpse for a third time. The Vetala's next tale begins in a world where dreams and reality blur completely. There was once a humble weaver, a man whose life was measured in threads and patterns, whose greatest joy was to watch the royal procession from a crowded street. One day, he sees the princess and his heart is lost. He knows a union is impossible, a fantasy. Yet, his longing is so profound it reaches the ears of a compassionate goddess. Taking pity, she grants him a temporary boon. For 1 week, he will not merely look like a king, he will become one with the memories, skills, and authority of a monarch. The transformation is instant and total. In this form, he wins the princess' heart in a legitimate contest and marries her, living a week of blissful, sovereign reality. Meanwhile, a powerful demon had also desired the princess. Seeing the weaver's success, the demon is not angered but oddly impressed by the depth of the mortal's love. He chooses to help, using his magic to sustain the illusion and fight off other supernatural threats to the weaver's happiness. When the week ends, the goddess magic fades. The weaver awakens back at his loom, the memories of his royal life vivid yet unreachable, like a magnificent dream from which he cannot wake. The princess, of course, has no memory of him as anything but a vanished king. The Vetala's voice cuts through the night, "So tell me, O wise Vikramaditya." The weaver's week of glory, his marriage, his rule, was it real or was it merely a dream? And more crucially, in this tangled web of illusion, who truly loved the princess? Was it the weaver who lived the experience, or the demon who sacrificed his own desire to protect the weaver's fragile happiness? The king walks in silence, the weight of the corpse a steady pressure. This riddle is a trap of perception. To call it a dream dismisses the weaver's lived joy and the demon's tangible actions. To call it real mocks the princess who loved an apparition. And love, the king knows, is not a question of form but of essence. The weaver's love began the tale, a pure, hopeless yearning. The demon's love concluded it, a selfless act of guardianship. The king finally speaks. The experience was neither fully real nor merely a dream. It was a reality woven by divine magic, true for the weaver and the demon, but an illusion for the princess. Therefore, the one who loved her truly was the demon. Why? Because the weaver, in his kingly form, loved her as a king loves a queen within a granted fantasy. His love was authentic but conditional upon the magic. The demon, however, loved her knowing he could never have her. His love was purified into an act of letting go, of ensuring the happiness of his rival simply because he cherished the princess' joy above his own possession. That is love stripped of all illusion. The Vetala's chuckle is softer this time, almost respectful. Another correct answer, O king. And with a familiar rush of air, the corpse is gone, leaving Vikramaditya alone once more to retrace his steps. This third lesson strikes at the heart of Maya, the cosmic illusion that shapes our perceived world. The weaver's week as king is a perfect metaphor for our own lives. We identify so deeply with our temporary roles, our social status, our possessions, our very bodies, believing this is our fundamental reality. Yet, like the weaver, these are temporary forms granted by circumstance, destined to fade. The parable asks a devastatingly simple question. If you lost everything you believe defines you, your job, your title, your appearance, what would remain? The answer is the essence that observed the loss, the consciousness that was first the humble weaver, then the king, then the weaver again. that awareness is the only constant. The demon's choice illustrates a higher law that true love and virtue are actions of the essence, not the ego. The demon acted from a place beyond personal desire. His assistance was not a transaction hoping for future gain. It was an offering from his essential nature, recognizing a kindred depth of feeling in another. This is why the king judged his love as truer. It was not attached to form or outcome. In our own lives, this translates to the love that asks for nothing in return, the help given anonymously, the integrity maintained when no one is watching. These are actions of the essence, brief moments where we see through the illusion of separateness and act from a deeper, more connected self. The weaver returned to his loom, but he was forever changed, carrying the memory of a broader possibility within him. The parable suggests that our greatest task is not to acquire a new form, but to awaken to the formless essence that wears all forms and to act from that boundless place. The weaver's week as king forces us to confront a staggering question. Who are we really when the costumes of our lives are stripped away? This is the heart of Maya, a concept often translated as illusion but meaning something far more subtle. Maya is not that the world is fake, but that we mistake its temporary, changing forms for permanent, solid reality. The weaver believed he was a king because he had a king's memories, a king's body, and a king's wife. For that week, he was not pretending. He was fully immersed in that identity, just as we are fully immersed in ours: the student, the parent, the professional, the success, the failure. But when the magic ended, that identity evaporated. What remained was the consciousness that had experienced both the loom and the throne. That awareness, untouched by either role, is the only constant. Our modern lives are a festival of Maya. We craft elaborate social media personas, polished versions of ourselves that crave validation. We derive our worth from job titles, bank balances, and the opinions of others, clinging to these identities as if they are our core. But like the weaver's crown, these are granted roles, costumes we wear for a scene in a much longer play. When we lose that job, when that relationship ends, when the online likes fade, we suffer because we believed the costume was our skin. The parable whispers a liberating truth. You are not the costume. You are the one who puts it on and takes it off. The demon's love offers the second half of this revelation. True love, in this philosophical framework, is an action that comes from the essence, not the ego. The demon loved the princess, but his desire was purified. He acted not to possess her, but to protect her happiness, even when that happiness was with another. This is love as selfless service, love that asks for nothing in return. The weaver's love, while passionate and genuine, was still entangled with Maya. He loved her as a king loves a queen, within the context of a magical identity he mistook for himself. His love was for the experience, the story, the form. So which love is more real? The king's verdict points to the demon, because an action free from the illusion of separateness and personal gain touches a deeper reality. In our relationships, this is the difference between love that says, "I love you because you make me feel a certain way," and love that says, "I cherish your well-being as my own, regardless of what I receive." It is the parent's sacrifice, the friend's unwavering support during your success, the partner who stands by you in a failure that tarnishes your social identity. These are moments where we, like the demon, see through the illusion of the separate self and act from connection. The weaver returned to his loom, but he was forever changed. He now carried a secret knowledge, a memory of a broader self. Our task is not to escape the world of forms, but to navigate it with the quiet understanding that we are more than the parts we play. When we act from that place, our love becomes less about what we can get and more about what we can give, and our identity becomes not a cage to defend, but a costume to wear lightly with grace and compassion. 24 times the king cut down the corpse, and 24 times he answered correctly, only to watch it vanish and begin again. His patience was a mountain, his will an unbreakable chain. Finally, on the 25th retrieval, something changed. The Vetala fell silent. No story came, no riddle was posed. The corpse lay heavy and still on the king's back as he at last delivered it to the tantric sage at the appointed crossroads. The sage's eyes glinted with a terrible triumph. He ordered the king to stand perfectly still and silent, to act as a living pedestal for the final, sinister rite. The sage began chanting, preparing to sacrifice the Vetala-possessed corpse upon the king's own shoulders. This was the true plan all along. The sorcerer did not need a mere corpse. He needed a sovereign soul, a king of unwavering virtue, to serve as the silent, willing vessel for his dark magic. By exploiting the king's sworn word and legendary discipline, the sage intended to channel the ritual's power through Vikramaditya himself, gaining control over supernatural forces. The king's silence, his perfect compliance, was the final key. But in that charged moment, after 24 cycles of profound contemplation, King Vikram saw the final riddle. It was not spoken by the Vetala, it was the situation itself. The sage had demanded obedience, but was obedience to an evil command truly righteous? The king had learned from the stories that duty must be intelligent, that courage must be wise, that reality is often a veil. His dharma was not to be a passive tool, but an active protector. Just as the ritual reached its peak, the king acted. He broke his imposed silence, not with an answer, but with a question of his own. He challenged the sage's intent, exposing the treachery. In that act of conscious rebellion against a corrupt authority, the spell shattered. The Vetala, finally freed from its bondage, blessed the king, and the tantric's power dissolved into nothing. The king's journey through the forest of riddles culminated not in blind obedience, but in enlightened action. This is the parable's ultimate synthesis. The 24 stories were Jnana, the intellectual knowledge, the riddles of life that make us think. The endless walking was karma, the relentless action, the doing. But the final confrontation revealed their true purpose. Knowledge and action are not separate. The wisdom of the stories was never meant to be collected like coins and kept in a vault of contemplation. It was meant to be spent, to be used in the decisive moment. True liberation, the parable teaches, comes when Jnana illuminates the path for karma, and karma is performed as a sacred duty, as dharma. The king did not gain power by solving the riddles. He gained the clarity to see the one final riddle that mattered. He did not gain power by being silent. He gained the courage to speak at the precise instant when silence would have meant destruction. The real supernatural power he attained was not over spirits, but over his own destiny, the sovereignty that comes from integrating deep understanding with fearless, righteous action. The forest of questions only exists to teach us how to walk through the world. Vikramaditya's journey through 25 stories was a masterclass in applied wisdom. Each tale was a single facet of a brilliant jewel, and by the end, the king held the complete gem. The warrior's selfless duty, the wife's intelligent courage, the weaver's illusory crown, and the demon's selfless love were not isolated fables. They were interconnected pieces of a single, profound puzzle about how to live a life of integrity and purpose. The riddles forced the king, and by extension all of us, to look beyond the obvious, to question our assumptions about reality, reward, and relationships. The forest path was long, but every step was necessary, for wisdom is not a destination you reach, but a lens you polish through constant questioning. So now, the final question turns to you. After this journey through the haunted grove of stories, which parable's lesson resonates most with your life right now? Is it the call to act from selfless duty even when no one is watching? Is it the challenge to find courage in cleverness and love, not just in strength? Or is it the liberating insight to see through the temporary roles you play and connect with your deeper essence? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let this ancient conversation continue. If you found value in these timeless lessons, subscribe for more journeys into the world's great wisdom stories. For the most powerful tales are not just entertainment, they are mirrors held up to our own choices, reminding us that the riddles of the past still hold the keys to solving the problems of our present.